HB, Jason Anderson with you, Michael Darcy, Jack Johnson hanging out with us back at the studio. We are in San Francisco. It is the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday. You can hear it right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We're at Radio Row for the week, today through Friday, broadcasting with the Zone. We'll have our regular guests that we're going to have on over the next few days, and then we will, I would say, sprinkle in some guests. I think that's sort of today, but Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we are going to be packed with tons and tons of guests. You'll just have to be listening in to see when we will get a chance to talk to all of the different people that we have scheduled this week. And I'll tell you, if the schedule matches up with what happens on the air for what is scheduled right now, I should say if it actually comes to fruition, it would be probably the best Super Bowl week that we've had. I mean, from Rich Gannon to Terrell Davis and Donovan McNabb and, Jeff Chadilla may come on as well, Devin Hester. But Jack Johnson's back there. But Jack, based on one player alone that is currently scheduled, it would make it the best week we've ever had. And that is on Friday at 11:30, scheduled to talk with Bo Jackson here at the Super Bowl.
Ooh.
So if the only interview I did this week with Bo Jackson, it was Bo Jackson, I would leave and go, it was the best Super Bowl Radio Row we've ever had. It was as good as we've ever. You only interviewed one person. I know, right? But it was Bo. So it's kind of like multiple people.
Exactly.
Because I interviewed a football player, a baseball player, a track star, a motivational speaker. I interviewed someone who's had to have a hip replacement and surgery, someone that's been through rehab. I interviewed all of those different people. It just happens to be a guy named Vincent Bo Jackson.
I would second that in a heartbeat. I mean, you get Bo Jackson on. I hope that interview is 2 hours. Maybe it's just your entire show. I mean, it is Friday, right before the Super Bowl, but why not? He played football at a very high level.
I would do it, man, in an absolute heartbeat. I would do that. But we've got tons of other different guests that we've got scheduled. We're going to start today. Ross Tucker will join us an hour from now. We will still talk with Myron Metcalf. Like I said, our regular guests we're going to have on that we typically do. Myron Metcalf, will talk with him at noon. College basketball on the docket, obviously, with Myron Metcalf. Todd Lebo will join us in the 1 o'clock hour. Tomorrow, we'll still talk with Cynthia Freeland. Thursday, the KC Sports Network guys. On into Friday with all the different, people that we will be talking to, and Matt Derrick and things like that. So still be listening in with all of our regular guests, but, a lot of stuff here at Super Bowl Radio Row. Leading into the maybe most expected and predicted Super Bowl at the beginning of the season, the boring, Seahawks-Patriots that everybody had. And the season just comes to and just happens exactly like we thought it was going to happen. Just crazy. It is fascinating that we're in this spot. We talked with Stacey Dales last night at opening night, Jack, and she goes, "How are you doing? Are you doing okay?" Because I started off, I said, "All right, Stacey, let's talk about the Super Bowl." And since we're at the Super Bowl, the first question is going to be, "What do you think about the Chiefs' opponent?" Can the Chiefs beat this team in the Super Bowl? She laughed. She goes, "So are you guys doing okay?" I said, we're doing fine. I wonder how the rest of the AFC is doing, because they were so tired of the Patriots forever. And they're like, you know what, enough with the Patriots. Then the Chiefs come along. They're like, oh, thank God it's not the Patriots. And then it's just the Chiefs. And it's like, enough with the damn Chiefs. Anybody else? Okay, cool. Here's the Patriots. You sure you wish for that one? We were talking with a guy from Boston here earlier, and he was like, it's funny seeing Boston and Kansas City people coming together. It's like, you know what? Hey, it's cool. We can just go back and forth here. To hell with the rest of the AFC.
Exactly. I mean, the Patriots were that villain forever, and I would say every single season, day in and day out, you prayed for their downfall. You prayed for the year that New England didn't have a chance at the postseason, which never happened, or didn't get a chance at the AFC title game, and then Kansas City comes in and basically dominates the sport for 6 seasons. And what's funny now is next year, who's to say the Chiefs don't do it again? Yeah. So I'd imagine everybody else, teams like Buffalo. Oh, man, I can't imagine the torture that Buffalo fans are going through. Seeing Kansas City do that for years, and you'd finally topped New England, beating them in a postseason game, beating Bill Belichick, and now you got to see Drake May, only 2 years into his NFL career, get to a Super Bowl. Oh man, now I can't imagine the pain they're going through.
With a legit coach, not a Gerard
Yes.
Mayo that's up there doing whatever he was doing for a year, not an end of Belichick where he's having Matt Patricia as his offensive coordinator. No, this is Mike Vrabel with legit coaches that have this team ready to go and gets to the Super Bowl, regardless of who they play through the regular season. And we know it was an easier path. And, they had to obviously beat 3 playoff teams to get to the Super Bowl here. I don't really give them much of a chance. Early prediction is that I think the Seahawks win by double digits, but we'll find out. The Patriots have been a resilient club throughout the year, so we'll see if that's going to be the case as well. Got a chance last night. We'll try to play these over the next couple of days, but got a chance last night at opening night to talk with Drew Lock, backup quarterback for the Seahawks, a guy that, Jack, I said when he was in high school, I said, this guy's going to be a part of a Super Bowl winning team. This Drew Lock guy. And I nailed it, by the way.
Hell of a prediction, yeah.
I mean, right? Killed it at that time. But it's funny. We talked with Drew Lock, and we joked about the fact that I went to Lee Summit North. He's a Lee Summit guy. And we both agreed to hell with Lee Summit West. We both sort of came to that same conclusion. And Evan Boehm and the whole Boehm family and all of that stuff, who went to Lee Summit West and won a state championship and was the center for Drew Lock at Mizzou for a long time and then played for the Bills. And, just like enough with the Boehms and Lee Summit West. So we had some fun talking about that. And then Mizzou, he gave us a little look at his time around Zollers and what he thinks of him as a player. So that was interesting, and talked about Clint Kubiak and this offense as to why it's so good. So it was a really good conversation. And then we also talked with Bryce Cabledew and Logan Brown, KU offensive lineman a year ago, now on the Seattle Seahawks. And I asked them the same question. Both guys, different interviews, asked them the same question. I said, you're in there blocking. Sam Darnold is out. Drew Lock's in there. What do you do? Do you slip? Do you fall? What happens? Because that's a Mizzou guy now back there. And they both said, they're like, no, I got to block. But I'm like, seriously, though, what would you really do? What would you want to do? That Mizzou guy back there, right? So we'll hear their answer. And then also talked with Mason Richman from Blue Valley, who went to Iowa. And had some fun with him talking about just sitting back and talking with people that get different barbecue restaurants in Kansas City confused. And he and Drew Lock hanging out and talking about their time growing up in Kansas City, and the fact that Mason Richman and his family are actually okay with the Chiefs not playing in the Super Bowl. That they don't have to be like, crap. We're here. Our son is playing with the Seahawks, and they're playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl that we went to all the games back in the day and grew up diehard Chiefs fans. And Mason dreamed of playing against the Chiefs and all of that stuff. So that was a fun conversation, too. We'll hear those throughout the day, today, tomorrow, and mix those things in. Jack Johnson is hanging out with us. We'll talk with Ross Tucker at 11 o'clock, Myron Metcalf at noon. Scheduled to talk with Joel Goldberg coming up at 12:30, and then Todd Lebo at 1 o'clock. Jack, let's start with college basketball. So we were at opening night last night, which, if you want to know how spread out it is here, people may or may not want to know. I'm not sure. If you were to guess, Jack, we got on the shuttle from San Francisco and the Moscone Convention Center to go to San Jose's Convention Center. Any guess as to the shuttle ride from the convention center where the media stuff is going on and press conferences and where the Pro Bowl is going to be played here in San Francisco, as opposed to San Jose where the opening night and the team interviews and everything? Any guess on what the shuttle ride was?
Well, I should have a good guess because my brother lives out in
Okay.
San Francisco and has for a number of years. So anytime I fly into San Francisco, I fly into the San Jose airport.
Okay, so you should
and
have
usually, but gosh, I've never taken the shuttle. I'm
Right,
always in his car.
It
So
was a big bus, right? They're governed at 68. That's what I heard the guy talking. He's like, we're governed at 68. That bus had 375,000 miles on it.
I'm going to say an hour and a half.
Very close, very close. Hour 40.
Okay.
Hour 40 there and back. Hour 40.
Eesh.
To go get, you know what? You people better freaking enjoy that Drew Lock and Mason Richman and Cabledew and Logan Brown interviews. I swear to God.
Hustled for it.
And Stacey Tales, we went freaking 3 hours, 3.5 hours essentially, driving or riding in a shuttle, because also like it was 5:15 when we left, because it's Pacific time here. So for the night show and everything, it was like, wow, we're leaving at no, it was 4:15. Sorry, we're leaving in rush hour to go and travel to San Jose. This is going to be fun. But I bring that up because when it was over, we get on the shuttle back, and I turn on YouTube TV on my phone, and there's 10 minutes to go in the KU and Texas Tech game, and I'm out of the loop on everything that's going on. So I catch up and see everything after the game was over of like the Christian Anderson saga that was going on in real time that people were watching while we're at opening night and trying to do that stuff. So catching up on all of those things. Seeing the numbers for Darren Peterson, not knowing how he's played, but seeing the numbers. Also, Jack, I will say, first thing I noticed was that Darren Peterson was on the floor with 10 minutes to go. So I thought, okay,
Mm-hmm.
there's already a better, a better deal. Didn't understand why Christian Anderson wasn't out there. So we're on the bus and we're riding, and 57-47, and I'm like, okay, this thing's probably over at this point because Kansas, in the few minutes that I've been watching, they're not playing all that well. They're down by 10 for a reason. I see Darren Peterson's numbers, so maybe he's been out there, but maybe not at 100%. Maybe it's more like 80% Darren Peterson as opposed to 100% for 20 minutes. Do you get 80% for 35? And they're down by 10. And from that point on, with 8 minutes to go, Jack, the way that I would describe it when the game was over, I sat back and I said, that is a quintessential Bill Self win. That is a win that KU fans have probably just become so accustomed to watching from an annoyance from the outside, quite frankly. But, from your and Michael's perspective, like they didn't play well. They're trailing and then they just lock down and find a way to win and go on a 17-4 run in the final 8 minutes, giving up 2 field goals in the final 8 minutes of the game, 1 field goal in the final 6 minutes of the game, forcing Texas Tech to go 2 of 15 from the floor, 0 of 6 from 3. JT Toppin had 2 block shots at the rim, one by Tiller, one by Badunga. Like, it was as Bill Self as it freaking gets, man. And if you have a game, to me last night, Jack, told me more about what KU can be than what Darren Peterson did in the first half against BYU. Because what would happen if Darren Peterson played but didn't play well? It's always like, well, Darren Peterson plays and he's amazing. Okay, Darren Peterson played, he's amazing. Okay, he's not out there. It's 2 different teams. But, Jack, what happens if he plays and doesn't play well? Okay, well, we kind of saw what happens if he plays and doesn't play well. But then he hits 2 of the biggest shots of the night and a couple of shots that will go a long way come Selection Sunday and seeding to go and get that win at Texas Tech, Christian Anderson or not. Because if there's one team that is not going to feel sorry for another team having to deal with a player in and out of the lineup or not knowing at the last minute if he's going to play, I think it's KU. They'd be like, oh, really, Grant McCaslin? Oh, you didn't know if that guy was going to play or not? Oh, weird. That's called KU 2025-2026 basketball this year with Darren Peterson. It's as Bill Self as I can remember a Bill Self win. And, Jack, my takeaway is what happens if Darren Peterson plays and doesn't play well? Well, they went to Texas Tech and they found a way to win. He hit some big shots, but he's not able to hit those big shots if they don't pull within 3 by other guys scoring and D'ing up and locking down and getting rebounds and blocking shots and stealing the ball.
Yeah, it was a tremendous effort on the defensive side of things. I know that last year when KU played Texas Tech, and I want to say we had this discussion about their style of play compared to KU's. And Grant McCaslin and Texas Tech, they want to shoot 75 three-pointers a game. They do not care about drawing fouls and getting the free throw line. I know JT Toppin can, but they want to go fire up about 50 three-pointers a game. And if you make 15 or 20 of them, it's still a pretty damn good percentage when it's all said and done. And so KU lived with that of you don't have Anderson out there. That's a big missing piece of that offense. But as long as we can rebound, as long as we can defend Toppin, we're going to give ourselves a chance. And Bill Self said that Flory Badunga is the best defender in the country. And after the last 2 guys that he basically put in hell, and A.J. Devansa and J.T. Toppin,
Yep.
It's kind of hard to dispute that. Now, I don't
Yep.
know if I'd go that far, but he's a top 5 defender in this game. And even though Darren Peterson hit the 2 big shots, they're not anywhere close to winning that game if it wasn't for Flory Badunga. There was a couple of big buckets he had late. He was great on the defensive end. And to survive a game like that, where you knew it was going to be a madhouse, you knew that there were going to be a couple of moments where you were in that danger zone of Texas Tech gets hot, they're on fire, crowd's into it, and you can't find anything offensively. It could be a long night. And I would say that over the last 3 years, they have experienced many games like that and many environments like that. And I would say that 9 out of 10 times they would crumble down the stretch. The crowd would get loud. They couldn't find that go-to score. They couldn't get that stop. Here comes a dagger three. Game's over. And at one point, it was a 3-point game, and now you lose by 15. It happened far too often over the last 3 years. This Kansas team is just different. And I can recall them having that players meeting after losing in Morgantown, and they haven't lost since. And they're never going to tell us what was said in the locker room or wherever that was. Yeah. But I have to imagine it was gut-checking everybody of how tough are you really, right? Are we going to be this weak defensively? Are we going to be this weak-minded of a group? And we know that Kansas can win at Allen Fieldhouse. We know they're going to be favored in a lot of those games. That type of win, even without Christian Anderson, that is a signature, as you said, a Bill Self win where he fist pumps, two hands in the air, and you remember it all season long. And the goal now is to stay atop the top 3 spots in the Big 12 and get your shot at Arizona in what should be one of the greatest games in Allen Fieldhouse history next Monday, an undefeated number 1 Arizona team against a number 8 or number 9 Kansas team.
Yeah, take care of Utah on Saturday, and then, which you should. And honestly, hey, Darren, if you need to rest up, go ahead and that might be a game where you can rest up, whatever, and get ready for what is a crazy 2 games, at home to Arizona and then traveling to Ames to take on Iowa State after that big-time win over Iowa State a couple of weeks ago. Was that 2 weeks ago already that Iowa State KU game happened? Good night, man. Time, you know what? It goes fast. Like, it seems like every day is only 24 hours. And then you wake up the next day and you do it again. And it's like, wow, it's been a couple of weeks since they, played Iowa State. But it was a fantastic night. Like, I think one of the things that, we see as the team grows and tries to get to the best version of themselves, Bryson Tiller had sort of a national coming out party against BYU over the weekend and what he can do offensively. And then he goes and follows that up with 1 of 6 with only 3 points. Oh, but he also had 10 boards and 4 assists and a couple of block shots and 2 steals in the game, showing that he was an all-around player and not just a guy that got some points and had some big buckets against BYU. And we know Bill Self is a great coach, but the 4-5 screen and the lob was a brilliant play from Tiller to Flory, and then the flare screen to get Darren Peterson, not necessarily open, but just to get him the ball. And a defender that isn't used to guarding Darren Peterson, and it was a guarded shot. It wasn't necessarily in rhythm, but he knocked it down. And I don't know about you, Jack, but even though he had been struggling, when he shot that, I'm like, it's going in. Like, he's not missing that shot. For whatever reason, I just felt like that shot was, and maybe because I hadn't watched the first 30 minutes of the game and hadn't seen him, miss a number of shots. But it just feels like at that moment with them and the way they had played to get back into it, that the story was going to be that shot goes in. And then, obviously, we know what happened after that. Were you confident that, after what you had seen the first – at that point was 37 minutes of the game, that when he took that shot, it was going in? Because I had no doubt.
I had more confidence than I had previously in the game. What I was wondering about late in that one is it, of course, went viral of when he's at the free throw line at the end of the first half, the whole crowd is chanting, he's a P word. Yeah. And I was texting a buddy of mine, and I said, not that you're going to look back and remember this game 5 to 10 years from now, but if they chant that at you and then you go radio silent in the second half or you sit down the rest of the game, it's not going to be a great look. And I remember in that moment when he's at the free throw line, he hears the chant and he just kind of smirks at it. Mm-hmm. And people clocked it when, he's going to go off for 30 in the second half. And when it wasn't trending that way and KU was down 10, it's like, oh boy. I mean, that's just going to be something where you call out a top player when they get those overrated chants and they just don't perform well. And the fact he hit those two shots, what's awesome about Darren Peterson and what we haven't gotten the chance to see on full display every single game is he hit that shot, and then on the next possession, you just knew in your mind he's not passing the ball and he's going to score. Yep. And when he shot the second three, I went, that's it. I mean, there's no way in my mind that's missing. Yep. And when that goes in, you go, yeah, that's the type of special talent where you know that he had mentally clocked it of even if I'm not playing well. And when you have a guy like that, I don't care if he goes 6 of 30 in the game. You got to live and die with what he has. Yep. And so it was an off-balance shot in the corner. To me, it's still a high percentage shot because it's Darren Peterson shooting it. The second one, it was a tie game. Most college coaches would say drive to the rim. Most Kansas teams would say get it into the post and try to bully someone and get a layup. When you have a guy like that, that was an NBA shot. That reminded me, I mean, of course, not the same stage, but my mind went to Game 7 between the Warriors and the Cavs, Kyrie Irving's three-pointer, when it was, tied up and they go up by 3. It was just that you didn't need a 3, but he just sort of stepped back a little bit, and off his hands, you knew it was pure.
Yeah, and that's a shot. Like we talk about guys that have a good three-point percentage, and it's like, oh, this guy shoots 40% from 3. Okay, yeah, and it's kind of like a batting average. Like this guy's batting 270, right? But what's he batting against fastballs? What's he batting against curveballs? Breaking stuff, off speed, things like that. Well, he only bats 130 against the curveballs, and this guy is a first pitch, fastball slugger, and he's batting 470 when he gets a fastball on the first pitch. I think about that with three-point shooters. That okay, this guy shoots 40%. What does he shoot when he's in rhythm and open? Because 40% is overall. Maybe a forced shot. Maybe you've got a heat check and you chuck it up. Maybe it's the end of the shot clock and you throw it up there. Maybe there are different shots that you take in the game. But I would guess that a Darren Peterson shot where he had that screen and roll, stepping into it in rhythm like that, 65%. If those were the only three-pointers Darren Peterson shot, what's he shooting on the season? 65%? From that spot on the year. And I think that's different than, well, this guy shoots 43% from 3. Yes, but what does he shoot when he gets to his spot in rhythm with an open look? Because we're talking about college basketball players, and that number is different than the overall, number of the season. And so when he stepped into that in rhythm, there was 100% that thing was going down. Just as all 3 of those free throws against TCU were going down, 100% that ball was going in because I'm like, that's his spot in rhythm, pull up, easy, smooth. He just made the one where he was kind of fading away off balance a little bit, so he got his touch, got his confidence. And I'm like, that's good. That's like I would guess he's 60, 70% shooter on shots specifically like that.
Oh, when he gets one down, you know that multiple are going to follow, and that to me adds to his description of being this pure scorer where, I mean, good luck staying in front of him, but also you got to get a hand up quickly because he doesn't need much space. And I always thought that was an incredibly underrated part of his game. You view him as this generational talent, somebody that can create their own shot. He can dunk over people. He's got great ball handling skills. He can rebound. He can do it all. I thought coming out of high school, though, maybe one of his most effective attributes was something that few KU teams have, and that is just a dead-eye three-point shooter. And Trey White is a 40+%. I think he's 44 or 45. But when you watch Trey White and how he gets his looks, it's usually open. He's had a couple of step backs, but he needs that catch, face the basket, and shoot it. He can't really have somebody right in his grill if he's going to be able to shoot the 3. Whereas Darren Peterson, I mean, you could have somebody that's 6'10" on him. He could have had JT Toppin on him with a hand right in his face. And if that ball gets over the hand, it has a high percentage of going in. And few Kansas players I can remember have had that level of skill. Andrew Wiggins didn't have that type of skill, certainly not from beyond the arc. Andrew Wiggins, to me, reminded me a lot of, or A.J. Debance reminded me a lot of Andrew Wiggins, where he was just so much more athletic than everybody, and he used that spin move. His second jump was phenomenal. Darren Peterson is somebody that I don't really remember seeing at the college level. Maybe Anthony Edwards at Georgia, but Georgia wasn't on the same level as Kansas. Kevin Durant is what everybody's saying. It's a little different because KD was nearly 7 foot in doing that.
Whoa, don't say 7 foot around Kevin Durant. I know you
Yeah,
said
okay, that's true.
nearly. I know you said nearly, but just say
Yeah.
6'10", 6'11". He's
6'10", 6'11".
there.
There
You
you
go.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
he's not quite 7 foot, but
yeah.
yeah, the
Don't
way
let him hear you
he
say that.
yeah, the way he plays is just so effortless. It's so smooth. And last night, even though it was not his best performance, Kansas fans have to be giddy because at no point was there cramping. At no point was there this odd moment of, I got to come out of the game. And it was in a
Yep.
massive showdown with Texas Tech. I had said they needed to go 3-2 over their next 5 to kind of keep pace. They have BYU at home. They had Tech on the road. They have Arizona next Monday. They have Iowa State next Saturday. You go 3-2, those 2 losses being on the road against Tech and Iowa State, you can live with it. Now that you have that win against Texas Tech, you go and you beat Utah. You find a way to knock off Arizona if that's possible. And now you really have a no-pressure game against Iowa State, where in the past, that was this, oh boy, you really are going to need that one if you expect to get that number 2, number 3 seed, or more importantly, keep pace with the number 1 spot in the Big 12.
Yep. It's The Zone here on this Tuesday edition, and we're hanging out in San Francisco. It is Radio Row week of the Super Bowl, a little bit different this week as the Chiefs are not here. And everybody is pretty sad. Like they're just walking around wondering, what do we talk about if it's not the Chiefs we're talking about? We'll take a time out. Last thing I'll say on this is, you talked about the free throw line and what we heard from the crowd. I don't think there's any coincidence that he played the most minutes of the season last night after hearing that. I think that was oh yeah, cool. Well, I'm going to make sure I'm out here playing no matter what. Now, if that means he can just find a way to play through it, maybe that's good news that they are sort of minutes restrictions. I know Bill Self doesn't want to hear that, but hey, we don't need him out there right now if you're up by 20, or there are some times when it's not feeling great, let's go ahead and sit him here. Or maybe there's a time when it's, no, he's not feeling as great, but he's going to tough through it because he's not going to go and sit on the bench with the heating pad on his legs while they're chanting that. And that may give you an indication of what could be in the NCAA tournament. The Big 12 tournament, I think, is a little bit different because you're talking about playing day after day after day. And a guy that has cramping issues, that doesn't seem to be the most conducive spot for being out there playing 25, 30 minutes a night. If you just played yesterday, got to play today, and then maybe play tomorrow. So we'll see. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We will continue our conversation. We're going to talk about the move that was made by the Seattle Mariners. A player that had been in much discussion around here throughout the winter meetings is not going to be a Kansas City Royal. Sort of felt like that wasn't going to be the case the last few weeks anyway. And the Kansas City Royals have a new TV deal. It isn't necessarily the best for them. It's probably better for Royals fans. We'll talk about that. Joe Goldberg will join us at 12:30 today to talk about that as well. Ross Tucker joins us at 11 o'clock. Todd Lebo, 1 o'clock. We continue with more Zone next.
You're in the zone with
DraftKings,
Jason
DraftKings.
Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Book. It's as good as it gets. You get all the action, all the fun, everything you can possibly need when it comes to your betting, your little bit more than a rooting interest with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL and the Super Bowl. It is all right there at your fingertips. You can play, whether that be the lines, you can play lots of different props. Man, this is a week where if there's something you want to bet on, if there's something you want to find, man, they will have it for you with DraftKings. And when anything can happen during the Super Bowl, they've got your back. The early exit is one of the coolest things that DraftKings does, because if a player goes down in the first half, you still get paid in cash immediately once the bet settles. No bonus bets, no waiting. That has happened during the playoffs a number of times. The last thing you want to have happen is betting at a different book, and that player goes down, let's say, in the second quarter. Too bad. You don't get that early exit protection at DraftKings. You do. If you're new to DraftKings, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code 810WHB. That's code 810WHB to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus. Visit
Johnson hanging out with us until 11 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, we will talk with Ross Tucker from Westwood One. He's been either in the booth or on the sideline this year for the Sundays and Mondays and Thursday night games and the playoffs along the way. He was in the booth for Rams and Bears and then on the sideline for Seahawks and Rams. He'll be on the sideline for Super Bowl 60 coming up on Sunday. You can hear all of that right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, your home for everything that is really good, as Todd Lebo said at one time. We'll talk lots of football, obviously. Myron Metcalf will join us at noon. We'll continue talking some college basketball with him. The game last night. Local teams moving forward. Mizzou, no midweek game, getting ready for South Carolina in another game that they need to win. Jerome Tang trying to get his team to click. He said something about clicks. I think that's what he was meaning, is like his team just needs to start clicking. That's what I heard, at least. I don't know what anybody else, because I hear him and then I just change it to think of whatever I want to think, to like sort of flip around his words to sort of give my narrative. That's what I do, at least. I'm not sure what anybody else does in the media, but I try to play it as poorly as possible, kind of like they're doing too. But we'll talk some college basketball with Myron Metcalf and then Todd Lebo at 1 o'clock. Joel Goldberg will join us at 12:30 today to talk about the Royals news. Jack, this has been a long saga, man. It is so different, obviously, with baseball and football, because we know that every single Chiefs game, every single game for your local team, you will be able to see out of market. You can simply pay a decent amount of money, but you pay, and you also get every single game as well. I still think they should probably create some sort of a streamlined, if you just want, let's say you live in California and you want to watch only Chiefs games. I think, Sunday ticket, you can individualize that, but that's neither here nor there. We get that with the NFL, and with baseball, it has been, okay, where's it at this year? Okay, well, where's it at this year? And that has been just a confusing process, and fans have become annoyed, and you lose interest when that happens. And even in a season a couple of years ago when they go to the playoffs, it was, yeah, but I can't really watch them. It's like, well, you can, but you just have to pay money. You got to stream it. Or if you've got DirecTV, well, now with MLB taking over and Royals.TV, you will be able to watch it on cable and satellite. You will pay it through an MLB channel. You can pay for it for $100 for the season, and it'll be through the MLB app, MLB TV, things like that. You could pay $150 for if you're out of market, $100 if you're in market. Bally's last year, or whatever the name was, last year, it was like $20 a month. So I think it came to like 120, 125, 130. However, it sort of came to be, because it was like a half month and then another one, but whatever. So it was a little more expensive last year than it is this year. You're still going to have the regular broadcasts. The main difference, Jack, is like you're still going to have to pay for it, but you're going to be able to watch it on cable, satellite, and it's not going to be, if you don't have DirecTV, then you've got to stream it, find the right app to stream it on, and is it Bally's app or is it Hulu and, MLB app? Okay, it's not coming through that. Now there are more streamlined ways to watch it. The baseball impact, Jack, is that there's not as much revenue that's going to be given to the Royals with this particular deal than there was the previous deal. And that's the downside to it, and that's the economics of baseball. I think it's probably better for fans this year. Still not great because you're still having to pay to watch them, whereas, NFL, you just simply watch them. They're there. But I think it's better for fans in terms of having different ways to do it and being able to watch it on your TV, on your, cable or DirecTV. But the Royals are going to get less money, and that isn't great.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part about this, because you would love to have a lucrative TV deal where it generates a ton of revenue. Unfortunately, the last couple of years, you weren't getting a ton of people watching it. I mean, yeah, the numbers were up a little bit because the team was better. But really, everybody that I had talked to, fan base-wise, just wasn't thrilled with what Bally was giving and what FanDuel was giving and how hard it was. And even that first year with Bally, it would cut away sometimes to some cooking channel in extra innings because it was programmed to switch the channel at that time in the day. I mean, there were so many issues with it. The app was confusing. The app would time out at times, and it became a headache. I have watched a couple of games, of course not Royals ones from the MLB services, but for other teams, and it's a lot cleaner. It's a lot better. If you're willing to pay the money to watch those games, I honestly feel there's going to be more of a positive reception to it than Bally or FanDuel, because with those, you'd pay the subscription, and then it wouldn't be worth the money unless the team was a playoff team, which they were in 2024. They weren't last year. You're going to have a lot of people get turned away by that. If they're not playing well, why would I spend money on that subscription? If they aren't playing well, but watching the game is easy, then you're going to have more people tune into that. And the bonus is the better they are, the more people tune in, the easier it is to view. It's not this whole issue of, gosh, when I would go to somebody's house that didn't have it, I got to download the app, I got to sign in, I got to do this and that. And sometimes even then, it wouldn't work. Where now if you have cable, you got satellite, you go to your channels, there it is. I can watch the Royals game really, really easily.
And for those of us that have kids, and Jack, maybe one day you'll experience this, when the Royals game is on, bedtime, bath, books, all of that stuff happens in the middle of the game. And one of my biggest annoyances with the way that it was on the streaming with Bally's was that I would pause it, and then I would come back to it like 30 minutes later to catch up, and it would immediately go to live. And then I couldn't really rewind it, and then it was like what's, and then it would pause, and it would stop, and then I have to reset it. And once I reset it, then it was like, well, now you're picking it up from here. I'm like, yes, but I paused it for a reason. If this was DirecTV or Stream or any other app, I would just pause it, and then fast forward 15 seconds, 30 seconds, rewind, do some of those things that we are so accustomed to doing now. It is really hard to present a product to the consumer of today without allowing them to pause and rewind and then fast forward to catch up without the glitch happening. It's been a big beef that I've had with ESPN's app that they still haven't figured that out. Although watching it through the Hulu, watching ESPN Sports, ESPN Plus, all of that through Hulu has been much better. That platform has made it much easier to pause and fast forward and rewind. And I'm hoping with the MLB TV and MLB app that it will be easier to do that, because that was my biggest beef. Because every single night the Royals are playing, if they start at 6 o'clock, they start at 7 o'clock. Either way, Jack, that's in the middle of bedtime and bath, and it's pausing almost every night. And it was like 50-50 shot that thing would just jump ahead. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I guess I'm just missed about 9 outs. I guess I'll catch up on, I'll catch up tomorrow when it's posted, as I've got extra innings so I can watch all the games. Tomorrow I'll be able to watch it after the embargo ends for the local blackout. I'll be able to catch up on that. But it was just sort of annoying, and I'm hoping that it's much easier this year to do that. But it is, I don't even know, like, what would be the best case, because there's 162 games. And so you've got NFL where you never have a specific local broadcast. And quite frankly, it's kind of odd when the preseason games happen on KSHB and it's the local team and they're only talking Chiefs, and it's sort of like, that home broadcast. It's kind of weird because we're so accustomed and used to, we have been conditioned to watch with a independent group broadcasting crew that is just giving you the game and not one side or the other. But baseball is different. I think, and part of the money that you're paying is that, one, you're getting 162, but I think baseball needs the local broadcast rather than just, hey, all of these games are going to be presented nationally, and Major League Baseball is going to have tons and tons of broadcast crews. And, hey, this is your broadcast crew for the Royals and Orioles series this weekend, and all 3 games are going to be presented by that. Kind of like when we get Apple TV Friday nights or something like that. You get that national broadcast that isn't one side or the other. I mean, it's not great to pay for it, obviously, if you're paying for so many other things. But I do think baseball specifically is the sport that almost requires that local broadcast from the local team's perspective.
You do, and I know a lot of people prefer the local broadcast. If the Royals are on Apple TV, if they're on ESPN, they're on Fox, they'd rather listen to the local crew. And that's totally fine as well, but a big part of baseball growing its brand and making sure that fans are invested and they're getting their money's worth is you want the product with this broadcast to be good, right? You want to see good angles. You want to see interesting stats. You want to have the people calling the game sound intelligent, sound or know what they're talking about. And oftentimes, it's not really been the broadcasters not knowing what they're talking about. To me, it's been a lot about the camera angles and not having the camera in the right spot at the right time. There's also been situations where it cuts out, or as you said, with the pausing and then trying to start it up again. You do that. It's the same with any sort of streaming service out there, not just sports related. If I'm paying a subscription for one of the streaming apps and it constantly times out on me or it freezes on me or it's hard to navigate the home screen, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to cancel my subscription. I'm not going to go back to that. So that's going to be a big key for this year, not only the Royals, but a lot of the teams that are going the MLB route, is if it's enjoyable. I love the Apple TV service that they do, the free games on Friday. It's 0-1. They give you the percentage of this guy getting on. Like, that to me is fascinating. The sound quality, it's better. You add all of those elements to it, and it's an enjoyable product, and that will have more people signing up and wanting to watch the Royals this year.
We'll take a timeout, come back, and I'll get Jack's thoughts on the Brendan Donovan trade. Would he have made the same deal? Because we know now about what it would cost for the Royals if they were to acquire Brendan Donovan. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk with Ross Tucker at 11 o'clock. More Zone next.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Radio Row Super Bowl 60 coming up on Sunday. Westwood 1 right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. You've got it all. Your home of the NFL. You can hear all of that, the pregame and everything throughout Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday here on WHB. We'll talk with Ross Tucker with Westwood 1, who will be part of the broadcast on Sunday. We'll talk with him coming up here in just a little bit. Wrapping up this hour as we're hanging out with Jack Johnson. Jack, we saw the news. Brendan Donovan goes to the Mariners. They give up their, 91st overall prospect. It's their 7th best prospect, but that's a little different than the Royals' 7th best prospect. They also give up a competitive balance round pick number 68 and another just regular player. So we know kind of, essentially what it would have cost, and that would have been a draft pick of some sort if they could trade it. And then Jackson Chourio seems to be sort of what you would have had to give up for Brendan Donovan and maybe another player along the way. Not sure who that player would be. Knowing what the cost is, Jack, would you be on board with what it took to acquire Brendan Donovan of the Mariners, or are you sort of on board with the Royals maybe saying, it's a little too steep, we're not going to go that route? We've got India. We've got some other guys here. We got a guy that we got from the Brewers and feel like maybe, he could be an everyday player. If you could find somebody else in left field, that'd be great, and he can be, that platoon type or fourth outfielder or somebody that fills in, whatever it might be. Would you be on board if it took Jackson Chourio, a player and a draft pick?
I even would think it'd be a little bit more. I love Brendan Donovan. I thought he was going to be the perfect fit for the Royals if they could get that deal done. But the reports coming out of those initial conversations were Noah Cameron and then some. So clearly they view the Royals farm system is nowhere near where Seattle is. I mean, Seattle has a loaded farm system, and what they gave up, it doesn't dent them a whole lot, and they got a whole lot better at the big league level. The Cardinals, though, to get 3 prospects and 2 round B, comp picks, that's quite a haul. I mean, they stayed pretty firm on what they were asking for Brendan Donovan, and having the 3-team deal, that was probably so that the Mariners wouldn't have to give up 2 draft picks. So you bring the Rays into this, they get Williamson from Seattle, and then they have to give up a pick. That's quite a haul there. But I would imagine for the Royals, instead of Kendry Chourio, it would have been closer along the lines of David Shields.
I kept saying.
Same last name.
Yes, no, I kept saying the wrong one. Boy, that'd be amazing if they had to give him up.
I know. I'd be pretty pissed if the Royals did that over.
Man, no way. I mean, I would just, what I would do? I'd probably just play him if you had Jackson Chourio.
Might as well give him the at-bats and everything. He's a young guy. He needs to mature. But to look at the Royals situation, David Shields, to me, feels a bit more comparable. And if you're a Royals fan, it comes down to how much you value someone like David Shields. To me, he's not only the best Royals pitching prospect, he can be one of the better pitching prospects in all of baseball in about a year or two. And the Mariners are in more of a desperate situation than the Royals are. I mean, the Mariners were 1 win away from the World Series, and they haven't been to a World Series. And the way they lost last year and the state of their farm system, it's somewhat comparable to where the Royals were in 15 of we got to the World Series, we lost in Game 7, we can't fall short again. And they more so did at the deadline. I mean, they traded away Finnegan and Cody Reed and John Lamb. Those were all guys that they valued at one point. For the Mariners, they lost Jorge Polanco. They lost Eugenio Suarez. They needed a big bat there, and Brendan Donovan is that. And I can see why the Royals didn't really match up, and it more so goes back to the final years under Dayton Moore. They didn't hit on many prospects. If they would have back then, we're talking about a farm system that's probably top 10 in the sport, and these trades would be a hell of a lot easier to pay off on or be able to accomplish, whereas now you got like the 25th ranked system in some people's rankings. That's not going to cut it for a lot of teams, and especially one that's in your own state in the St. Louis Cardinals.
For sure. Jack, you're the man. Appreciate it, brother. As always, we are hanging out now. We're joined by Ross Tucker here on Radio Row with Westwood One and about, 25 other different outlets that you can hear. And Ross Tucker and all the things that he does. How you doing, man?
I am doing awesome. How are you guys doing?
We are doing fantastic, man. Day number 1 here at Radio Row, and Should be a fun week.
Does it feel weird to be here without the Chiefs?
I feel like everybody needed some sort of a break, and I feel like they were just doing like a solid for the rest of the league. The joke I've kind of been doing, last night we went to opening night, and the different people we were talking to, analysts, not necessarily players, of like, all right, so we're at the Super Bowl, so let's get it out of the way. What do you think of the Chiefs' opponent? How good are they? How good can they be this year? It's like, oh, wait, no, they're not here.
Dude, I got to tell you, seeing what the Eagles went through this year, because I do their preseason games on television and I do some work for them during the year, like a social media clip or whatever, their pregame show. It makes this run the Chiefs have been on, in particular going to 3 straight Super Bowls, unbelievably impressive. Because the Eagles had more injuries this year. They had guys whose performances dropped off. They had the brain drain with losing Kellen Moore as the OC. It makes the sustained success of the Chiefs at that level. The Eagles have made the playoffs 5 straight years, and they went to the Super Bowl 2 out of the last 3 years and played Kansas City in both of them, which is impressive. But for the Chiefs to get to that many Super Bowls and that many conference championship games, it is hard to do. And if anything, I hope this year helps those people in Kansas City. I'm sure they appreciate it, and I'm sure they always have appreciated it, but maybe even just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Ross
Tucker's our guest, and you're with myfrontpagestory.com. And we've talked to you before when we've had you on, leading into Valentine's Day. And one of, it's an incredibly unique Valentine's Day present is My Front Page Story. So tell people what it is and how they can get this fantastic idea for Valentine's Day or birthdays or Christmas, whatever it might be.
Yeah, so my buddy started the company.
Okay.
And he's a former sports writer, but we all know that that's not the best field to be in. So he started this company, myfrontpagestory.com, and it really is the best Valentine's Day gift I've ever seen. You talk to a writer for 10 minutes while you're driving home from work. Tell them how great your significant other is, girlfriend, wife, fiance, I don't care. They write this, or by the way, you can just fill out an email. It's a lot easier for some people to just fill out an email. They write this incredible story. It looks like it's on the cover of the newspaper. It's framed. It's beautiful. Pictures of you and her and the kids, if you guys have them. Probably no pictures of kids if you don't. That would be weird. But when she's opening
it came in the picture frame.
Jason, it's so funny, though, because when they're opening it, they really are confused.
Yeah.
Because they think it's like a painting or like a picture, and then it looks like there's a story, and they're like, what is this? When you lean in and say, honey, I want to do something special for you, so I had a story written about you. That sounds like the most romantic gift you could ever get someone. Like, what do you mean you had a story? I had a story written about you. It sounds so money, it's not even funny. And then make sure you tell the writer, I never thank her enough for all the little things she does for me. That line, she will cry. You will win. myfrontpagestory.com. I would not steer you guys wrong. myfrontpagestory.com. And even if you already have, you're all set with what you're looking to do for Valentine's Day, just go throw your email address in, because you'll get the coupon code for Mother's Day or an anniversary or a birthday or the holidays or whatever. myfrontpagestory.com.
Visiting with Ross Tucker from Westwood One. You'll hear him coming up this Sunday on the Super Bowl right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. He was in the booth with Bears and Rams and sideline with Rams and Seahawks. And, mentioning kids, it just reminded me, there was a day earlier this year we were leaving basketball practice with my son. My daughter was with me, so they're 10 and 6. We're driving home. I'm listening to, I think it was Thursday Night Football, and you guys started talking about 6'7" on the air. And for the first time, my kids were like, what? Hold on, what are they talking about? And I can't remember which game it was. But you guys were like, why is this going on? Like all this, the 6'7".
I was trying, my daughters are 13 and 12, and I was trying to single-handedly end it.
I'm with you.
I'm trying to say it so often that it's not cool anymore.
Yeah.
And
I think, did he just say 6'7"? Did he just say 6'7"? He did say that.
And you know what's funny? You don't realize it, but it actually comes up a lot.
Yes.
Like 6'7" comes up a lot.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
Ross Tucker is our guest. Joe Brady in Buffalo. Is this going to work? Is this a Sean McDermott? It's just time to move on, and there wasn't a Ben Johnson or somebody like that was out there. So let's see if Joe Brady is the one that can lead this. Is it, Josh Allen influence? What do you think of Joe Brady now leading the charge in Buffalo?
It feels, at a minimum, awkward, and I can understand why for some people it's uninspiring.
Mm-hmm.
When you make the big move to fire McDermott, it's because they can't get over the hump. They can't get to the Super Bowl. And so we got to change. We got to make a big change. But then when you hire Joe Brady, it feels like you're leaning back into, continuity and familiarity, which is what it seemed like you were just getting rid of. And I guess my thought is, I'm a little skeptical that a 36-year-old first-time head coach calling plays and as the head coach, that's somehow going to be better. Like, you already had Joe Brady. He already was calling the plays. You really added nothing is the way I would look at it. But you took away McDermott, who had done some positive things. Now, maybe it's the secret sauce, and maybe it's the formula, but it certainly was not the way I thought they'd go. But, I thought they'd go Brian Daboll.
Mm-hmm.
They also, I'm a little surprised that they didn't kind of put feelers out to Stefanski and Harbaugh's agents, like, hey, don't have them sign this weekend. If something goes down for us, we might have an opportunity here.
Ross Tucker's our guest. So Matt Nagy gets the job with the Giants. That came out this morning as the offensive coordinator for John Harbaugh. And Eric Bieniemy returned. That happened before Matt Nagy got the job. Going back to your playing days, how guys respond to certain coaching, I think is interesting because Eric Bieniemy, his first go-around in Kansas City, was, the red ass, was the guy that, was making sure the guys were paying attention to the small specific details. Former players are like, finish. I mean, if it says finish, you're just going to, that in training camp, he's screaming, finish, all these little things. And he will tell you about it in your face. And it is maybe not the easiest coach to play for. I'm not saying Matt Nagy is better or worse, but it's a different style than Eric Bieniemy. The Chiefs clearly felt like maybe they needed to go back to that style a little bit to get back to the kind of team they are.
What's your understanding, Jason, of sort of how that whole thing went down with Nagy, Bieniemy? Nagy letting his contract expire, trying to get a head coaching job. Now he's, the Giants OC. Do you feel like it was more Nagy's decision, more the Chiefs' decision, more mutual? What's your impression?
I think it was more mutual. I had heard the final 3 weeks or so that Nagy wasn't going to be back with the Chiefs next year. Whatever capacity, if he's going to be a head coach, but he also would have been just fine being an OC. Because the way that I've described it is Matt Nagy right now for the Giants has a job that he's never had before. Because the OC for the Chiefs, he doesn't call plays.
Right.
Then he was the Bears head coach and play caller. So now you're the head coach of the entire team. He's never been the OC and only offensive coordinator. This is your job and calling plays, and I think that's something he wanted to do. If it's not a head coach, he wanted to get back to calling plays. It was never going to happen in Kansas City. I think he just wanted to make that move, like Eric Bieniemy wanted to call plays. And so I think Matt Nagy was comfortable with, if I don't get a head coaching job and I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm good with that, because then it's my offense. I can call the plays. That's not going to happen here in Kansas City. And I think the Chiefs were ready to get back to somebody that sort of got the guys in line. And maybe there's a little bit of you don't know what you've got till it's gone. When they were ready to move on.
I mean, they still
BB.
Went to a couple Super Bowls and won one without,
for sure,
it's
without
not
EB,
like
yes.
there wasn't like that. The drop-off wasn't until this year, but I can understand that maybe they think he can kind of shock them back into where they need to be.
Yeah, Ross Tucker is our guest. So, what do you think of Matt Nagy with the Giants?
Well, full disclosure, I like Matt a lot personally. He's from same area, Pennsylvania. I'm from.
Okay.
So I've known him. I mean, I watched him play against Berwick in the state semifinals in 1995. Right. I think he's going to do well. I think John Harbaugh obviously believes he's going to do well. The guy won 12 games and should have won a playoff game if it wasn't for a double doink
Yeah.
with Mitch Trubisky
Yeah.
as his quarterback. And then what ultimately did him in was he couldn't get Justin Fields to play well. Guess what? Neither has anybody else.
Yeah.
So what's the knock on him? That, he couldn't win again in year 2. Didn't they make the playoffs the next year with Trubisky again?
Yeah.
Like at
He
9
went
and
twice.
7?
He went two different times.
Yeah,
to the
and
the playoffs.
then finally they draft Fields, and Fields is Fields. So
Mhm.
I think I'll be curious. I think Nagy. So it's interesting what you say about that, about EB, because Nagy can be fiery,
Mhm.
and I think I'm excited to see what he's like with Jackson Dart, because they kind of remind me of each other a little
Interesting.
bit, and he needs to get Dart to realize he's got to be smarter and
Yeah.
can't take some of these shots he takes.
You've proven you're tough.
Yeah,
we know that.
yeah,
You've
yeah.
proven it. Let Cam Scatterbo be that guy.
Yes.
Although I do wonder when Scatterbo went down, did Jackson Dart feel like he was the one that needed to then take on the toughness of the team? That, okay, Scatterbo can't do that, so maybe I need to be the guy that sort of carries us and
No, I
shows
think
how
that's
tough.
just who Dart is. I did the game a couple years ago, Ole Miss, Alabama for
Yeah.
CBS, when he tried to run over Jahad Campbell and his helmet went flew. He's just, I love it,
Yeah,
but you can't do it.
yeah.
I love the mindset, but you can't do it. Like, it's
Yeah.
too important that you're out there.
Ross Tucker's our guest. This matchup in the Super Bowl, one of the things I wanted to get your thoughts on, because you've been on the NFC side, with in the booth with the Rams and Bears, but also on the sideline with Bears and Seahawks and Rams. What's the is there a lesson with Sam Darnold in that maybe the talent was there that just needed to find the right spot to get the most out of them, or allowing a player to progress over the years and maybe not just he didn't work out, so we cast him aside and never give him another chance? Is there a lesson with Sam Darnold, what he's doing?
I mean, there is. What I think is so interesting about it, though, is like how many other guys would get that opportunity. Yeah, you're talking to a former undrafted free agent. If I was like Sam Darnold, I mean, I played for 5 teams. I'm kind of rooting for Sam Darnold.
Mhm.
He's the king of the 5-team club right now. I think the lesson is players get better or worse, number one, and that we need to acknowledge that. And then number 2, situation means a lot.
Yeah.
My rookie year, I had Marty Schottenheimer as my coach, and he told me after the season, I can see you starting next year, and I thought, awesome. Then Steve Spurrier came in. We went from throwing the ball 20 times a game, throwing the ball 40 times a game out empty. That was not me. If Marty Schottenheimer never got fired by Daniel Snyder, I would love to have seen what would have happened with my career, because I think I would have started for the Redskins for a while probably, but none of us could hold up with 40 empty protections every game.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Ross Tucker is our guest. Do you have an early feel for this matchup? I know you can't predict one way or
No,
another.
I can. I think the Seahawks are the better team. I think the Seahawks will win. I do think it'll be close. And if you like to make games more interesting, like we do on the Even Money Betting Podcast, it's legal there in Missouri now, right?
It is, and Missouri and Kansas.
Yeah, Even Money Betting Podcast. It's I like the Patriots with the points. I think it'll be a
Okay.
close game. Maybe that's wishful thinking. But check out Even Money, and definitely check out myfrontpagestory.com.
Yeah, Ross, thank you so much. I
Of
appreciate
course,
it.
Jay.
man.
Great talk with you.
Absolutely. There's Ross Tucker joining us, Westwood One, CBS. Myfrontpagestory.com is where you can go and check out the really cool Valentine's Day, Christmas, birthday, whatever it might be, gift for your significant other. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. I was looking at the last couple of days about the different things that maybe you can glean from the teams that are here and the teams that lost in the conference championship games, and how that compares to what the Chiefs did this last year. And I'll tell you, I was not looking for, hey, what do the Chiefs struggle at? So now let me find something as to why this is a reason the Seahawks or Patriots or Broncos or Rams are in the position that they were in. I was looking at common denominators from those different teams. And it's pretty glaring when you compare it to what we've seen from the Chiefs this year. And it makes a lot of sense why the Chiefs, even with Patrick Mahomes before he went down, was not a playoff team, as to why that is the case. We'll take a timeout. We're hanging out here at Radio Row, Super Bowl 60. You can hear it right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We continue rolling. Coming up at noon, we'll talk with Myron Metcalf, some college basketball. Joel Goldberg will join us at 12:30. We'll talk with Todd Lebo at 1 o'clock. More Zone coming up next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Big events come with big expectations. But transport shouldn't be one of your headaches. Kansas City Transportation Group delivers seamless black car and shuttle services, built for corporate events, conventions, weddings, and everything in between. Professional drivers, pristine vehicles, on time, every time. When every detail matters, trust the team that moves Kansas City. Kansas City Transportation Group. Luxury, logistics, handled.
New year, new meetings, new reasons to make food easy. Start the year with Schlotsky's Catering. They've got breakfast covered with their classic taco.
Michael Darcy coming up at noon. We'll talk with Myron Metcalf from ESPN. He is our college basketball insider. Big game last night there in Lubbock, Texas, as Kansas pulls off the victory, and a 10-point deficit turns out to be a 3-point win in Lubbock last night for the Kansas Jayhawks. We'll talk about that with Myron Metcalf. What's going on in Kansas State, in Manhattan with Jerome Tang, clearly feeling the heat. Is this a coach that sort of knows that the end is near? We'll talk about that. The really just, I mean, I don't know. Is it even just shooting par for Mizzou to go to South Carolina and win? Like, holding serve, whatever way you want to describe it. I'm not really sure. Let's talk some NFL football here. And, we try to find lessons learned from teams that are in the Super Bowl or make it to the conference championship games. And typically, we haven't had to do that over the last 6 years, because 5 of those times the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. And so only one time we had to do that, and they were in the AFC Championship game. So this is the first time with Patrick Mahomes that we can look at other teams and go, okay, so is there a common denominator that the Chiefs were missing this year to get to a Super Bowl besides, an amazing quarterback? They have that. In the past, it would be, okay, so how do you get to the Super Bowl? I don't know, have Tom Brady? Well, that makes sense. Or it was have a quarterback on a rookie contract and you can build everything around him. Have a good quarterback on a rookie contract and then build everything around him. But we know that you can win a Super Bowl with a quarterback that's getting paid a lot of money, because Patrick Mahomes has surpassed 11 or 12% was the threshold of a quarterback that took up the salary cap. His cap number that year couldn't be more than 11 or 12%, whatever. And I think that was a flawed way of looking at it, because if you're talking about the entire quarterback room, there is a little bit of a difference when it's like, okay, well, this team made it with that guy. And it's like, well, yeah, but they also had a guy that they had cut that they were paying like $12 million against the cap. So like those guys combined equaled more than 13%. But those are like the old school ways of looking at it. Certainly you would still like to have that rookie deal and a quarterback that's good enough, like Drake May this year for the Patriots, like the Broncos were hoping to happen with Bo Nix. But trying to find some of the themes from these particular teams, and what is one of the things that really stands out to me is explosive plays are kind of the theme of these 4 teams that made it to the conference championship and these 2 teams that are in the Super Bowl. Explosive plays, 12-plus yard runs or 16-plus yard passes. And if you look at explosive play differential, which is how many you convert versus how few that you give up. So the explosive play differential is a pretty big deal in the NFL. In today's NFL, especially with so much of the too high, the shell defenses, the way teams are playing to keep everything underneath. They are essentially saying, okay, you picked up 5 yards. We don't think you're going to be doing that for 8 or 9 more plays to pick up 5 yards a pop. And with the way the kickoff is, that teams are starting with the best field position than we've ever seen in the NFL. This year, starting field position was the best it's ever been in the NFL, in NFL history. And that makes sense because now you're getting the ball at the 35 on a touchback. Or you're getting out to past the 30-yard line, which is the average starting field position on kickoffs. So with that being the case, it takes an explosive play to be into scoring range, to be into field goal range. If you start at the 35 and get an explosive play, 16-yard pass, you're already into plus territory. Now you don't even really need a first down to be able to kick a field goal. I mean, you pick up 8 yards. At that point, you're still talking about a 50-some-odd yard kick, because you'd be at the 49, now the 41, so it'd be a 59-yard field goal. But if you get an explosive play and a first down, you're well within field goal range. And the Chiefs could not get explosive plays last year to save their life. I mean, we talk about the longest runs of the season this past year. That Brashard Smith had 2 rushes of 14 or more yards in the last game of the season, and the Chiefs had 2 all year from their running backs. A Kareem Hunt, an Isaiah Pacheco. Now, Patrick Mahomes picked up a 20-yard run, but that's your quarterback. They could not do that, and the big pass plays were missing from this team. So what's a theme for these particular teams that are here? Explosive play differential, the Seahawks are number 1. The Patriots are number 4. By the way, the Rams are number 2 and the Broncos were number 5. 4 of the top 5 teams in explosive plays played in the conference championship game. The Chiefs were so far and away from being in that mix. They could not create explosive plays. And I think one of the big reasons is that the way, and this is going back to when people want to talk about scheme and what Andy Reid does, and does there need to be a refresher? Do you need to have an update to the whole thing, which I do think the Chiefs are going about doing. I don't think you bring in Chad O'Shea, and hopefully with Eric Bieniemy that there's some influence of Ben Johnson. We'll see if that's the case. Chad O'Shea being part of the passing game as, working with Joe Blameyer from Kevin Stefanski's, coaching tree and his scheme. Hopefully there is some sort of an update and an upgrade to that. But point being, the way that teams are getting explosive plays is not the way that it used to be, where you would have the single high and you'd have players that would run these deep overs and big chunks in the middle of the field, because those are guys that are quicker, the faster, the smaller guys. That's about speed, that teams were using and utilizing that. And that's not the way that teams are creating the explosive plays anymore. You're seeing them create explosive plays in different ways. I mean, the Patriots are the worst team in the NFL in red zone defense this year. The worst team in the NFL in red zone defense, in percentage-wise. The difference is they don't allow explosive plays, so they're giving up certain plays here or there, and then they're getting a punt or a turnover, because they're not allowing these big chunks of yards and then to get into the red zone, because they don't stop teams when they get there. Like, you can be deficient in a number of different ways, but in today's league, in today's NFL, if you are not generating explosive plays, you are not getting to a point to where you can be that consistent offensively. And early on in the season, when we're talking about, well, the Chiefs, look what they were doing against, the Raiders and the Commanders and the Lions and the Ravens, they were generating explosive plays. They were not having 12-play drives to go down the field and score a touchdown. It was, here's a 20-yard pass. Here's a, 25-yard pass. Here's a swing pass, screen pass that turns out to be, 17, 18 yards. Here's an RPO that actually worked against some bad teams. But we're finding out this year, specifically, because it came crashing down, certainly after Mahomes got hurt, but they were significantly worse against the Chargers the second go-around than they were the first time. Why is that? Why were they a worse offense? Why were they more predictable? Why were safeties teeing off from 15, 20 yards deep as to what the Chiefs were doing? Because everything had to be underneath, crossing routes, mesh, quick slants, screen pass. Like, everything was underneath. And that is not how you're at, and especially without the threat of a run game. Like, there were so many things that the Chiefs did this last year that are in opposite spectrums of what we've seen from these teams that are in this spot. And I think also, like, one of the things that we'll look at when it comes to the draft and when it comes to free agency, we're also seeing bigger receivers that are able to beat the cover 2, cover 6, 2 high defenses that, we're seeing teams play. Because you've got to be able to create and get open in the muck, in the middle, in space. And some of those things, those dig routes over the middle, you have to have bigger receivers. It requires size to win at some of those spots. And that's where people have gotten frustrated with Andy Reid and the archetype of the receiver and go for the small, speedy guy. And Xavier Worthy, here's some speed, some speed, some speed. And the way defenses are playing you, and it's like, no, you got to take the top off the defense. But they are not allowing you to do that. So how are you able to win? It's not necessarily with speed anymore. Puka Nacua is not winning with speed. Cortland Sutton not winning with speed. Devontae Adams is not winning with speed. JSN isn't winning with speed. He's certainly got speed, but he's winning in other ways, in route running and not just, well, this guy is going to be fast. He runs a 4.2, so let's send him down the field. That's what they were hoping to get from Rashee Rice, but it wasn't nearly consistent enough, and I don't think the system and the scheme was consistent enough in how teams were attacking and what they needed to do in seeing how the NFL has evolved. It's really fascinating to me that the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl and beat the 49ers in a year. They go on the road to Buffalo and go on the road to Baltimore, and they're playing 13 personnel, and they've got blocking tight ends, and they've got, a heavier run scheme. And the year before that against the Eagles, they had Michael Burton and they had, blocking tight ends, and they were a heavier team that they could go 13 personnel. But it's back-to-back years where they go and win the Super Bowl in the way teams were playing against them, that they're still playing against them now in some of the too high looks, to go and attack with bigger guys. And now what are we seeing? We're seeing this year teams that have gone more to blocking tight ends that are in the position they are because they've got guys that can add and be like an extra offensive lineman. Remember last year, all the in vogue thing was 6 offensive linemen. Like, oh, they're using 6 offensive linemen here. The Bills are using 6 offensive linemen. Look at this new way that they're bringing an extra offensive lineman down here. Oh, and he's eligible, so is he going to get the ball or not? No, he's just going to be an extra blocker in there. But what did the Bills do instead of going 6 offensive linemen? They went and got Hawes in the draft in the 5th round, a blocking tight end, so that they don't have to have a 6th offensive lineman because teams aren't really doing that. But teams now are utilizing way more the heavier blocking tight ends because defenses have gotten faster and lighter. And the Chiefs, in that time, and this is where I think it's where Andy Reid has been ahead of the game or staying ahead of the game or coming up with new, different, cool things. This is where I don't know that it's just because they've been playing late into the season or didn't read the tea leaves or these younger coaches are coming up and having different ideas, but the way the offenses in the NFL have evolved and the way the Chiefs have gone the opposite route is really fascinating because they went from a team that had to be heavier, bigger, blocking tight ends, fullback, to go to, Buffalo and Baltimore and then beat the 49ers, to then having no fullback, no blocking tight ends. Robert Tonyan is your 3rd tight end. Jared Wiley is maybe a blocking tight end. That was sort of it. But having a bigger guy when other teams are going under center, running it more, running to the tight end side, running to the strong side more, especially these teams, not just teams in the NFL, these teams that are here in the Super Bowl and played in the conference championship games. Like, what is going on with that the Chiefs aren't doing? The evolution of the NFL has gone with the defenses being smaller and faster and smarter than they've ever been and playing to where they're going to keep everything in front of you. And teams attacking a certain way and now no longer being able to do that, to where the Rams from the Super Bowl against the Bengals, the Rams in the Super Bowl against the Bengals, that team that year ran the most empty sets of anybody in the league. That's what they did. That's what Sean McVay did. They didn't run play action. They didn't have running backs in the backfield. It was empty, empty, empty. This year, heavy play action. Heavy extra tight ends. 12, 13 personnel. 2 running backs in the backfield at times. Like, Sean McVay went from being a team that didn't play action and didn't have a running back in the backfield to then, over that time, being heavy, running the football, and attacking the defenses that are getting smaller and faster. That's the way that would have been the natural progression and evolution. Sean McVay saw it. Sean Payton has always sort of done that. You see the Patriots going that route, and the Seahawks absolutely going that route with bigger tight ends that can block and the running game. And you've got some weapons. They traded DK Metcalf, but you've got some weapons in Sam Darnold to run the offense and do enough and play amazing defense. So certainly that's part of it. But just watching the explosive plays and how the teams got to those explosive plays versus what the Chiefs are not doing is really interesting in seeing Andy slip behind the times from where the league was going and not be on the forefront or right in line with those teams. That it went the exact opposite, that they stopped running play action. They stopped having a blocking tight end. They started going shotgun runs. When they ran play action, it was out of shotgun, less plays under center, and the NFL is going the exact opposite way. I mean, defensive ends in the NFL are the lightest they've ever been. By a decent amount, by the way. Like we're not talking about 2 or 3 pounds. Like we're talking about defensive ends being, 10 pounds that are, in fact, I think the number is 12 pounds lighter than what they were 10 years ago. Defensive ends, edge rushers in the NFL are 12 pounds average lighter today than they were 10 years ago. And teams have countered that by heavier personnel to attack that. And the Chiefs got lighter with the lighter defenses. Like, that's not necessarily a surprise that they couldn't create explosive plays. Because Andy Reid said it himself. Well, we're not actually threatening the defense. There's no threat with the play action. We are not getting the linebackers to react the way that we want them to react, which means that there's a threat to the run game. They aren't doing that. There's no threat. So then the play action doesn't work. Because all play action is doing is trying to disguise. I mean, all you're doing is trying the motions, you're trying to figure out what they're in. But when you've got play action or different things that you can do going against tendencies, 12 personnel, okay, well, there's 13 personnel. Okay, well, now you're sort of dictating what the defense is going to have out there. Those are things that it felt like Andy Reid always did, would always sort of dictate to the other team. What did Spags say? Spags said something a number of years ago that I thought was a great way of describing it. He said, we want to have the chalk last. So when you're up at the chalkboard, maybe now it's the dry erase marker at the whiteboard, but he said, we want to have the chalk last. So we've got the chalk, and it's like, the Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting when they're he and the professor or Fields Medal, are going through and doing the math equation together. It's like the offense makes an adjustment, then the defense, boom, has the chalk, then the offense gets the chalk back, then the defense gets the chalk, and then the offense gets the chalk back, and Spags, you want to have the chalk last. Well, defenses are having the chalk last more, and how can you dictate that? And against the Chiefs, defenses had the chalk last. And it always seemed like Andy Reid was the one that was able to dictate what they did and then play off that. But the way his team was put together, smaller receivers, smaller tight ends, no real running game and threat of that, not going under shotgun, not shotgun play action, was giving the defense the chalk last. And we wonder why the offense struggled the way that it did against good defenses. Yes, offenses that are good perform better against bad defenses than they do against good defenses. But it also is worth pointing out that in 2022, when the Chiefs were the number one offense in the league, they were also the number one offense against the good defenses they played that year. This year, they roasted on bad defenses. And they did nothing, essentially. They had some of their worst games against the good defenses this year. That, to me, is when we talk about freshening, it's like, oh, it's just a generic. How do you update the scheme? Oh, it needs an update. They're just doing those sort of the same things over and over again. Yes, but why are they knowing what they're doing? Because defenses have adjusted and they have evolved. And Andy, which is really it's fascinating to me and surprising, because the Chiefs have been the reason why the defenses have evolved. The Chiefs are the reason. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are the reason why defenses have gone to too high, to shell coverage, to not allow all of those explosive plays and over routes and mesh and just getting, these small, fast guys out in space and running. No, we want to keep everything in front of us. We want to make them a running team. We want to make them go dink and dunk down the field. We don't want to give up those explosive plays. So then how do you counter that? And the Chiefs were doing that in 2023. They did that they lost to the Raiders, and at that point they said, we're going to be a running and heavy team. We're going to do enough offensively. We're going to be a running and defensive team. And Patrick Mahomes is going to do enough to get us to victory. And he did. And for whatever reason, they did not see the way that the game was evolving, because in the first round they went and got Xavier Worthy, another smaller, fast guy. And it's like, people talk about Mekhi Lemon and what he may bring to the table. I mean, I think we're seeing bigger receivers become the reason and the way that offenses are, part of how offenses are creating those explosive plays. Like, it is one of like 6 things that I think are trends that we saw from these teams that the Chiefs are lacking. And for whatever reason that is, I don't know, but they've got to figure that out. They have to figure out why the league adjusted and evolved, and they did not. Maybe that's just stubbornness. Maybe that's thinking it's worked, it's going to keep working. And you know what? There's something to be said for that. Why would we change when we've gone to 3 straight Super Bowls? We had injuries this year. Just get everybody healthy, we're going to be fine. Get Rashee Rice back, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown. When those guys are on the field at the same time, there isn't a defense that's going to be able to stop this team. Until we found out that it wasn't just that. It wasn't just put good players out there. Because if you put good players out there and the defense has an idea of what you're doing, Patrick Mahomes can't save you every single play. You can't constantly rely on the second play on the original play that you called. You've got to have other ways to do it. And teams have figured out the way to do it is to get bigger and attack and go under center and play action off that, because that actually gets the linebackers to react. And it disguises what you're doing, so you're giving them multiple things to think about. We'll see if the Chiefs adjust. It's not just about hand the ball off and run the ball more. But if there's ever a time for the Chiefs to do that, if there's ever a time for the Chiefs to go into an offseason and say, this is the time that we have to figure out more of the run game, it's when Mahomes is coming off his first major injury, hopefully and last, that he's coming off an ACL and LCL injury that you saw firsthand. He can't continue to be the guy that just carries the team offensively and running the ball too. He can be the guy that can carry you as the quarterback, but he can't do it as the quarterback and the freaking running back. So it is on Andy Reid and the coaching staff to figure it out, to not have a season that Patrick Mahomes is dragging the offense down the field. Sometimes literally when it comes to hitting defenders and trying to pick up first downs. Like it's frustrating to watch and to see what other teams are doing and getting to this spot, and the Chiefs have been passed by. And yet in 2023, they were the ones that were doing it. And Sean McVay hadn't got to that point. But I bet Sean McVay saw that in 2023 and said, we run a lot of empty. We don't go under center, and we don't run play action. And now they are heavy play action, heavy under center, and they're in the NFC Championship game. The Seahawks, heavy under center, heavy play action, and they're in the Super Bowl. Denver, Sean Payton has been that for a while. New England with Drake May, he runs the ball as well. We'll take and by the way, the reason they went and got Travion Henderson is because explosive plays. He's their home run hitter. He's an explosive play guy. That's what you need. How do you generate that? You certainly don't do it by quick slants and screens and mesh routes and bubble screens to your wide receiver. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Want to see more
Right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We're hanging out at Radio Row. Super Bowl coming up this weekend on Sunday, right here on Sports Radio 810 at WHB. We continue rolling from Radio Row tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday as well. And we got a couple more hours to go here in the show. We'll talk with Myron Metcalf coming up at noon, so a short segment here, and then we'll talk with Myron. We'll talk with Joel Goldberg around 12:30 or so, get his thoughts on the Royals television network, Royals.tv, and what that means moving forward for Royals fans and people that are going to be watching the games this year. And, you know, right around the corner, heading to Surprise, Arizona for pitchers and catchers. So we'll talk with Joel Goldberg, and then Todd Lebo joins us in the 1 o'clock hour as we'll continue talking about a lot of the things going on, obviously, with college basketball. You know, Myron Metcalf coming up. We'll talk with him. Also going to hear from, at some point, I want to play back the conversation that I had with Drew Lock last night, backup quarterback for the Seahawks behind Sam Darnold, talking about Mizzou, Lee Summit winning the state championship. He agrees Lee Summit North way cooler than Lee Summit. It was odd that he would do that, being a guy that had a rival in Lee Summit, although when he was in high school, maybe the rival was more Lee Summit West. But it was really, really cool of him to say that those that went to Lee Summit North are so much cooler than those that went to just generic Lee Summit, you know what I mean? And especially Lee Summit West. That was really big of him to say. But also talking about Clint Kubiak and getting the Raiders job and what he sees from Sam Darnold. And also wanted to, ask him about JSN. Like, what is it about JSN as to why he's always open, man? Like, what is it that he does that makes him open constantly? It's got to be pretty nice to be able to throw to a guy like that you just know, I don't have to stare at him, but I know at some point in this route he's going to be open. I know that he's going to find a way to gain separation, and he's going to be open. So we talked with Drew Lock about that. Also, Mizzou and watching Matt Zollers and what he has to offer and things like that. And obviously they've got another quarterback in there, but that was with Drew Lock's time around Mizzou and seeing Zollers and being around some of those guys and catching up with Brady Cook. So we talked with him and a few of the other local guys that are here that are playing for the Seahawks that are the local connections. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. Myron Metcalf coming up next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WH.
Here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, Jason Anderson with you, Michael Darcy. We head up until 2 o'clock. We're hanging out San Francisco. It's Radio Row today, tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. Super Bowl 60 right here on Sports Radio 810 on Sunday. Your home for the NFL, the playoffs, and the Super Bowl. We'll continue with our guest here from Radio Row. Right now talking some college basketball with our college basketball insider from ESPN. It is Myron Metcalf joining us here in the zone on this Tuesday. Myron, how are you, sir? Yes. Yeah, you know what? It's different. It is a little more laid back here. And I think, it's not nearly as big in terms of Radio Row and opening night last night. There's a couple of reasons. The main one, I think, is Myron's just because the Chiefs aren't here, so who cares? You know what I mean? I think that's the national perspective. Why would you go and cover it if the Chiefs aren't here? The other reason might be, holy bleep, how expensive it is here to cover the Super Bowl. So I think there's a lot of people that took this year off. That's my guess. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Yep.
In the past, we're going to get something that we've never seen, man. 2 hours to
last night, so we get in, and last night we wanted to go to opening night because there's a number of local connections on the different teams. Like Drew Lock went to Mizzou from Kansas City, back up to Sam Darnold, and a few offensive linemen for the Seahawks went to KU. And so we wanted to go there and talk to different people. And so we get on the shuttle to go down there, and he said, all right now ETA is an hour and 45. It's like, for 6 interviews? But luckily, Myron, because it's Pacific time, I got on the bus when it was done, and there were 10 minutes to go in Lubbock between Kansas and Texas Tech. So I got to watch that on the bus ride home on the shuttle, and then I had another, hour or so after that to go and hang out on the bus. But was able to see that, and it's crazy, Myron, trying to catch up in real time because I wasn't seeing everything that was happening in real time with Christian Anderson before and during and then halftime and then, not playing and all of that drama that seemed to be going on around the actual game. I had no clue. So I tune in with 10 minutes to go, and he's not on the floor. And I'm like, okay, but Darren Peterson is. Oh, that's a nice development for KU that Darren Peterson is out there. Who would have thought, Myron, that we would have had a game between Texas Tech and Kansas and said, you know what, the star player was maybe going to play, maybe not going to play. They thought he was going to be available, then he wasn't available. And it wasn't Darren Peterson. That's an M. Night Shyamalan twist.
Yeah.
What do you make of, have we figured out anything with Christian Anderson? Because even after the game, Grant McCasland said, well, I didn't really know what was going on. Because, if he's sick, I don't want him on the bench next to my players, right? If he's sick, is he going to be on the bike, working out? It was an odd thing. With Darren Peterson, we know there's cramps. He's going to be out of the game, or the ankle injury. This was interesting because Grant McCasland was like, we didn't know he was going to play. Then at halftime, we thought he was going to play. Then he doesn't play, and they don't have him at all. And for a second there, Myron, I was like, oh, yeah, so now you know what Bill Self has been going through so often.
Yeah.
But do we know anything more about what happened? What was going on with that whole saga? Yep. No, it's a really interesting point. Myron Metcalf from ESPN is our guest. There's always been like Darren Peterson has been so much of the story with Kansas of whether he plays, whether he doesn't play. When he plays, he's amazing, but how long is he going to play? One of the things that I've wondered, and we hadn't seen it to this point, is what happens when he plays and he doesn't play well. Because it's like KU has two different teams. It's Darren Peterson out there and he's scoring and they're looking good. Darren Peterson not out there. Other guys have to step up. But what if he's playing a lot and he's not knocking down shots? How do they then do in that game? And I thought that's one of the things that was kind of important last night is we saw what happened to a KU team when Darren Peterson just didn't have it. He played 35 minutes and wasn't the Darren Peterson we had seen, pretty much any other time he's been on the floor until, like you talked about, needed to go in the phone booth and knock a couple of shots down. But also, if they're not down only three, those last couple of threes don't matter for Darren Peterson. So other guys with Peterson on the floor, mind you, Myron, had to figure out how to keep the team in the game, defend, rebound, block shots, score when necessary, whoever it was. I thought there was something to take away from that as, okay, what does Kansas look like if Peterson plays and he doesn't play well? Well, they look like a team that, Christian Anderson or not, whatever, with Texas Tech, that they went on the road and found a way to win. Visiting with Meyer Metcalf from ESPN. Is there any coincidence or is it correlation causation that Darren Peterson played his most minutes in a night when he was at the free throw line and the opposing fans told him he was something that maybe isn't the kindest thing to tell somebody that's a night he chose to play 35 out of 40 minutes?
I don't know that Darren.
This may be an obvious question, but I'll ask it anyway. What do you learn about Kansas in a two-game stretch out of 3 days when it's kind of an NCAA tournament Thursday, Friday, or Thursday, Saturday, Friday, Sunday, this Saturday, Monday, where they beat BYU and they go to Texas Tech and win? Could be obvious, but I'll still ask it. What do you learn and anything to glean from a team that's able to pull off both those wins? Metcalf is our guest from ESPN. We'll find out a week from last night, so 6 days. We'll find out on the 9th, but at least for one of these teams that I'm going to ask you. But how do they stack up with a team like Arizona, like Michigan? If we're saying, you know what, they go to Texas Tech and they win that game, they beat BYU. Darren Peterson played 35 minutes. You know, he hits those big shots, puts on the cape. Bill Self says it's things you're going to be talking about for years to come. Maybe this is a national championship team, Final Four team. How do they stack up with the Arizona and Michigan of the world? I think last night was an interesting version of Bryson Tiller because against BYU, we saw Bryson Tiller sort of announce himself as a really damn good player in that game against BYU. But last night he scores only 3 points, but he has a career high in rebounds and a career high in assists. And he also has 2 steals and 2 blocks. Like he wasn't scoring, but he had one of the blocks on JT Toppin at the rim when Kansas was making that run down 10 to, limit what Texas Tech was able to do. So I thought that was an interesting step for Bryson that he wasn't scoring, wasn't knocking down shots, wasn't having the highlight game he had against BYU, but he still
Yeah.
had career highs in a couple of big categories for him.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Love that, and engaged Bryson Tiller. So I'm writing that down because I love the way that describing that because it's so perfect. Because it's not just a scoring or an aggressive, but an engagement. That's really good. Myron Metcalf is our guest from ESPN. We've talked for a few weeks around here on the shows, not necessarily with you, but at times with you, but on the show in general about what's going on with Kansas State and the direction that it's heading. Unfortunately, it's certainly sounded, and I hate it because he seems like a really good dude and I like him, but it sounds like a coach that feels like the end is near when we get they've changed the rules on me. And then we get well, it doesn't matter what I say because you guys are going to spin it for your clicks, and that's just what you guys want to do. Like it sounds like a coach that's feeling like the end might be near for him. Yeah. going to ask you is, revenue sharing, I think, is a little bit different than if it was just straight NIL because revenue sharing, okay, that's not necessarily coming from the boosters to where they've got to write a check. It's we've got $20 million to disperse one way or another. We're going to allocate this money, these funds over to the basketball side. Strictly NIL, I'm not sure you're going to get somebody to write a check for $2 or $3 million more to have a $5-6 million roster if the wins are not coming along with that. But the question then to me would be, are you better off having that guy write a check for the buyout than hoping to get him to write a check for a player? It's not only a massive number, $18.7 million. It would be a record for a college basketball buyout, and it would be a record by 4 million. Like
Yeah.
the previous one was Danny Manning with a little less than 15 million at Wake Forest. This is $18.7 million for a buyout for Jerome Tang. And the thing about it is, Myron, it's not to me. I'm not looking at it as 18.7. I'm looking at it as 3 million, because let's say it's too expensive. You got to keep him one more year. Well, then it goes down to 15.7. It's only $3 million less. If you're saying if he doesn't do it again next year, we're firing him for 15.7, then you might as well figure out how to get to 18.7. Yep. Yeah, from ESPN is our guest. One more for you, Myron. We see this freshman class and how good it is, and one of the best we've ever seen. So I am not saying anything about what the next freshman class will be. This is just a sort of a general statement or a question in today's landscape. We've heard different coaches, Rick Pitino, say there's no reason to recruit high school kids. I'm only going transfer portal. We've seen a lot of, like Jerome Tang, transfer portal. We've also seen Keaton Wagler here in Kansas City, go to Illinois and now be a top 10 pick, and he wasn't recruited by the local schools. But Brad Underwood in Illinois thought he was good enough to come out of Kansas City, which is a conversation that we've had on a different level. But I asked the question how important the high school players are because Mizzou has now 2 McDonald's All-Americans. I believe it's the first recruiting class where they've ever had multiple McDonald's All-Americans. Their highest-rated recruit since Michael Porter Jr. is a part of that. KU also a McDonald's All-American as well, but Myron, they're used to that. Come on, we don't really need to point that out. But where's the level, the line of getting the high-end high school talent versus also now we pay so much attention to the transfer portal guys? And I would think 10, 15 years ago, 2 McDonald's All-Americans for Mizzou basketball would have been celebrated and a parade. And, oh, my God, how amazing this is. And it's like I just feel like it's kind of just under the radar. And it's like, oh, that's cool. High school kids? Oh, neat. What's that? Let's see what that looks like. Oh, a high school player, huh? What's that guy going to look
Yeah.
like? It's weird. But
Yeah,
where's the level there of the importance of those high school players? Mm-hmm. Myron Metcalf from ESPN. Myron, you're the man. Appreciate it as always, brother. Love the conversation. Enjoy the basketball. Enjoy the football this weekend as well. And we will catch up next Tuesday, the day after that Kansas and Arizona game. Should be a fun one. Thank you, sir, as always. Oh, nice. Heck yeah. There's Myron Metcalf. He'll be there next Monday there at Allen Fieldhouse as the Jayhawks taking on the Arizona Wildcats in a huge matchup. And look, with whether that be seeding implications or that be, Big 12, just simply, wins and losses and where they rank in the conference, it's a massive game. And maybe even just to say, hey, where do you sit with the, number one team in the land when you get ready to play that team. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We will switch the conversation. We'll talk a little Royals, but we're going to talk some Royals and TV with the latest news about what's going on with the Royals television network and Bally's and what is it, where is it, things like that, and getting ready for pitchers and catchers and a little World Baseball Classic. We'll talk with Joel Goldberg coming up on the other side of the break. More Zone next. right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Plenty of guests we'll still be talking with throughout the next few days. Thank you to Myron Metcalf from ESPN talking some college basketball in the previous segment. So now we get to talk some Royals baseball with Joel Goldberg. Royals pre and post game on Royals TV. Joel, welcome into the show. How are you, sir? I am doing just fine. So a new way to introduce you. So the Royals.tv, Royals Television Network, MLB. How do we sort of describe this thing now that we will see a different way to watch Royals games?
Well,
Yeah, so that was one